Hey all the Zerks, and welcome, dramatically, to Eternal. So, in the spare time, I tend to play a lot of competitive CCGs, Eternal being my latest fix. If you were anything resembling a regular viewer of the channel over the last year, you know a couple months ago, maybe even half a year ago, I showed something called Feria on the channel, and then they did something brilliant. It was a small company in Belgium doing this game. I thought it was a really neat concept, and it struggled with the small user base, basically. There was a very small player base in the game, and they said, you know what we could do to fix this awesomely generous free-to-play game with a small user base? Let's make it pay-to-play and totally take away mobile support. Yeah. So I stopped doing that completely, and I got hooked on Eternal. So I'm going to basically, the idea of this episode is to introduce you to the idea of what Eternal is. I think I might be doing occasional content with this as I'm laddering or playing other stuff. It's a really, I guess, expansive thing. First of all, it's made by Direwolf Digital. This is basically a company based out of Colorado, I think, with a bunch of MTG pros. I think Conley is involved in this. LSV's on there. Chapin, I think, is involved. So, like, if you know MTG and you know the competitive scene and the PTQ and the Pro Tour and stuff and Worlds, like, you know the names, right? And they are all involved in the development of Eternal. So it's very well balanced. It's got a very good team, creative team behind it. The best way to think about Eternal is, you know, taking MTG, taking some of the, not necessarily unnecessary, but some of the complexity out of it, more or less of when the stack happens. If you're familiar with MTG, you'll understand a little bit. As you see the game, you'll kind of get it. And doing things with the MTG kind of format-ish, because you have kind of something resembling mana, and you kind of have the same attack-defense idea. There's no, like, board game, or it's basically like playing a tabletop MTG game, or Magic the Gathering. Sorry, I didn't even tell people what MTG is, good lord. In digital format, and doing things with abilities of cards that you couldn't feasibly do in tabletop without some really crazy canoodling. The one thing I want to show you real quick, I've been playing this about 4 months or so. Also, super generous free-to-play model. You can get every single card, newest sets, oldest sets, for free. Totally playing. I've spent very little money on this, mainly just to support the team. I've pitched a couple bucks their way for certain content, but again, 95% of what I've earned so far in my collection is purely free to play, and it's a blast, so I'm having fun with it. So what are we talking about? Let me talk about Warp, a mechanic here, just so you understand kind of what they're able to do. So Warp is a mechanic here, which you can play this card from the top of your deck. So basically, if you have your hand and you'd normally be drawing, if this is on the top of your deck, the top of your deck actually flips open, and you have a little bit of a thing saying, hey, you can play this off of your deck rather than playing it off of your hand. It's kind of a form of card advantage if you're playing something with Warp. Now, in a tabletop game, this is one of my favorite mechanics in the game. It's very difficult to implement well in a deck that doesn't abuse it. It's kind of hard to abuse, but it's potent because in a tabletop game, you couldn't do this. Like, how would you do it? Marked cards, or everyone has to wear special 3D glasses, and maybe these only have a special sort of thing on the back that only the person who had warp cards would know, but then the opponent would know they're playing warp cards and things like that. So they're taking mechanics that would be difficult to implement in tabletop and playing it in the digital format. So what I'm going to do for this first episode, because I've talked a lot and no one is probably listening at this point, is to play a couple rounds of just laddering. I'm going to play a relatively simple mid-range deck, and show you kind of how Eternal plays and how it's a little different from MTG, and I'll just kind of talk through my ideas, and this will be kind of a primer so you can get a feel for it. And then if people like it, I mean, there's a crap ton of formats. There's ranked, which is basically competitive laddering. There's casual, which is the same thing with pre-constructed decks. This is both constructed formats, if you're familiar with that, which is no ladder, just for fun. The rewards are less in casual. Event, often there's a sealed format where you just pick a bunch of packs at the beginning of a month and you play a league throughout the month. There's draft. That's another limited format you can play. There's free gauntlets. Forge is kind of like an AI draft. There's just so much stuff here. There's a lot of content. It's all free. It's fantastic, and I highly recommend it. If you're a fan of competitive card games, if you ever played MTG in the past, Magic the Gathering, and you feel like doing it but don't really have the time or money to invest in Magic anymore, and you want to do it on your computer, this is mobile capable in Apple and Android. It's a blast. So I'm going to stop talking. This is the intro. If you like what you see, let me know in the comments. I'll put up some more. Again, scratching that CCG itch that I have so much of. So without further ado, let's get into our first game. Going to play some Argenport mid-range with the new set that just came out last month, Fall of Argenport. So let's go and have some fun with that. I'll see you in-game. Alright folks, round 1 up here against Valentine, who's in gold 3 right now, which is the next stage of the ladder. We got a pretty decent hand, but no real creatures to play with the required influence. We're going to go kick in. So the power in this game is called power, not mana. Basically the way it works is every power card you play gives you 1, but a lot of the casting costs of the cards are based on the power or influence you have. So here I have 1 Justice, which is the green, 1 Shadow, which is the purple. And that way, the costs in the hand, as you see, so for example, the third card from the left is an Unseen Commando. He costs 3 total power, 2 of which, and you have to have 2 influence in Justice to play him. So that's how that'll work. I'll be able to play him next turn no matter what power card I play. The opponent has used a weapon on the avatar character, so this is not a creature that's in play, but it is the player himself taking a weapon in hand, and this can kick you in the nuts. Okay, fast effect, killing my commando with a torch, and he's going to keep beating me in the face. The issue is if you attack, you are treated just as a creature, so if he attacks my Sheriff Marley here, he'll lose his weapon and take actual 3 damage because he only has 1 armor left. I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but there's a lot to talk about. Sheriff Marley is a character for 4 power, 2 influence, with a lot of text, but the important blue thing around her is something called Aegis, which basically stops the first offensive enemy spell against her and negates it. Doesn't stop friendly spells, so if you do a board wipe, she'll die too. But it's kind of like a defense. It's very hard to get rid of her effectively. So our opponent chose not to block here, obviously thinking that he could use his Sower of Descent that he played there to get some advantage next turn, but we're not going to really let him do that. I was going to maybe use her ability to drop just a chump blocker. Another part of the massive amount of text on that card. But we're going to drop another Sheriff Marley here and make him have a real hard time. Because he's playing Fire, which is very much in the line. Amelia's a scary character. He basically generates flying units every time he attacks. Again, I'm just going to go ahead and block here because he attacked kind of in an interesting way. And the reason for that was he got another Miner's Musket, and he took 4 damage for killing that character, but that creature. So we're going to immediately annihilate this guy because he's going to gain massive board advantage by constantly generating flying creatures. We're going to go ahead and probably swing for 7 here. And Bloodletter's a weapon. It's basically like an aura, so to speak, in Magic the Gathering, where you play it on a creature, and that one in particular gives you +3/+3 permanently, but the turn you play it, you get to get Lifesteal, or if you're familiar with Magic, Lifelink. So basically you got to heal up for 7 on that swing, and we are firmly in command. We have card advantage, we have board control, we have a crap ton of damage, and we're going to drop another commando and see if he's got an answer to that. Looks like he's thinking about casting something. Finest Hour is a fast effect we have. As you can see, every time the game pauses, it's basically an indication that there's the stack. Chronowatch Paladin is an awesome 2-drop. It's a 2/1 with a Warcry, which buffs the next unit in the deck by +1/+1, and Aegis, which protects the first fast effect against it. The issue with this particular round is that we're playing a lot of creatures with a lot of text. Torch is pretty simple. Fast spell, 3 damage, which is basically equivalent to instants if you're playing Magic. I'm going to do a lot of Magic allegories here. It's really difficult to explain otherwise. Just use... Good lord. And then there's sorcery speed stuff, which is called spells. Only 2 speeds here. And there's the win. Okay, I'll try to keep explaining this game as we go to the next round. I'll see you all then. Crazy stuff. Hoi. Alright, next round, same deck against Dud 225. Maybe that's Dude, maybe it's not. Who cares? Let's keep going. Alrighty, 1 power hand, immediately going to redraw. When you redraw an Eternal, it gives you a guaranteed 2 to 4 power hand. It's kind of an interesting mechanic to kind of avoid that horrible, horrible mulligan feeling of mana screw. I played there a Seed of Vengeance, which gives me 2 sorts of influence, but unless I have a standard sigil in my hand, it comes out depleted, which is 0 out of 1. It means I can't play it that turn, but next turn the power will refill. As you can see now, though, the Seed of Vengeance was green, which means I'd have it undepleted, which means I could play any card possible there. Using Sabotage to maybe get a power, a relic or a spell, so an attachment or a spell off his hand, came up empty, lost card advantage there, 1 for 0. Not so good, kind of went blank. Didn't expect to, but we did. The next turn, probably going to drop a Seed of Vengeance and drop my Auric Interrogator, who's a 4/3 for 3, 2 Shadow Influence, and when his attack is at least 5, he draws me a card, which is insta-card advantage, which is something I like very much. In my hand is a beautiful Inquisitor's Blade, which is second from the left, which allows me to give him +3/+1 and flying. So basically he'd have some evasion and immediately start activating at the end of my turn to give me card advantage and draw, which is fantastic. So we're going to immediately do that. He's played a card which didn't do much. When the summon effect is double the cost of a spell in my hand, I had no spells at the time, so he came up a dud, so I feel a little better about the Sabotage miss. Now, that was still kind of not a 2-for-1, but we got there. So there's the Inquisitor's Blade. Got a 7/4 flyer, kind of imposing, plus free card draw due to his ability. He does 1 damage to me for that, but you know what? I'm not going to complain. So we're sitting pretty well. We have a pretty strong position on board. Opponent is playing a Time Primal Shadow, which is left to right, the colors of the deck. And that's probably something I want to go into at some point, is explaining the ideas behind the factions and the colors and what the themes are. Kind of a better sense for the game. But 3 colors is pretty aggressive, but often has a lot of tricks, a lot of ways to transform creatures randomly or throw them into your hand or stuff like that. So kind of a tricksy little hobbits kind of deck, so that might be something we got to watch out for. The markets I almost don't want to get into. It's kind of like a in-game sideboard. You can place things called merchants, which allows you to trade a card in your hand for something in your market. It's a very, very powerful thing that you can do, and it was newly introduced in the new set. Kind of an interesting way, again, of employing that. Something you can do in tabletop for sure, but as we continue to build card advantage, we have 2 merchants, so our market full of flexible answers to things. There's the Equivocate, which transforms the creature into something else and throws into my hand. The Inquisitor's Blade, luckily, was expecting to throw in my deck, because when the unit dies, it goes back into my deck. However, because the Equivocate didn't kill the unit, the Inquisitor's Blade dies because it was just returned to my hand. So that's kind of a bummer. It was a very good play on my opponent's part, and he's got 2 cards, the middle one and the right one, that give him +1 maximum power. You can see his overall mana base is way better than mine. So we're going to go attack here aggressively. We have stronger board, so he's going to give up on that card. That had an ability to make it much stronger than it was. He's obviously going to give up on that. Now, our play here is, do we kill something to reduce his maximum power, which is an option, and then merchant something, or do we play the kill and then just play out another creature, which was transformed into? The glow around that gunslinger suggests that it has an ability called Ally, which gives it a +1/+1 if there's another gunslinger in play, which Sheriff Marley is. But we're going to go ahead and take one of my favorite cards out of the market, Inquisitor Mokto. 5/5 flyer for 5. Lots of influence requirements. Black Sky Harbinger is scary. But we have something called a Vanquisher's Blade, which is a 2/2 blade, and if you pay 5, so basically a kicker cost of 3, again, if you're familiar with Magic terminology, it allows you to play a spell called Vanquish, which kills any opponent with attack 4 or more. That Black Sky Harbinger with lifesteal, or lifelink if you're familiar with Magic, is now going bye-bye. So 2-for-1 there, and we go ahead and swing in. So we are super tempo positive right now, and our opponent needs some serious freaking answers really quick, or he's going to get bit pretty hard. Surso's Cleaver is pretty good. Again, he's going to 2-for-1 us now with all the extra power he has. Plays Feeding Time, which kills a unit, and gives his other unit an ability called Killer, which allows you to targeted attack a unit. We're going to play Mokto, and Mokto is a pain. He flies, he's a 5/5, and when he dies, he has an ability called Revenge, which allows him to get shuffled back in the deck. Normally, on a Revenge card, that goes away. For him, it never does. Sandstorm Titan, one of the most undercosted, overpowered cards in the game, gets killed by a Slay, which lets us fly again, because that's his other abilities prevent people from flying, and the opponent concedes immediately. Not too shabby, friends. 2-0. All right, round 3 against Bestial. Running a decent hand of power, but all this would be coming into play depleted. So really my 3 drops would be 4 drops, and I don't have any early plays against aggressive decks. I'd get screwed. Decide to keep it anyway because the influence is there. Might bite me in the ass. We'll see. Opponent, don't know what fashions he's playing yet. But we'll see. Again, we have our Interrogator, our Flying Commando. So he's playing a Huru faction, which is a lot of flyers, usually a lot of evasion, usually not that fast on damage. So we're going to say, okay, we're going to slow play this. We're going to drop a Sabotage out, see if we can pull a spell or attachment from their hand, which could be a weapon or something. We're going to hold it until we maybe get something better. We don't have any 2-drops. Won't be able to play any decent 2-drops, so we'll probably use Sabotage next turn. And I did that because he drew another card, a higher chance of hitting something with Sabotage, if there's anything of value. Kothon. So it looks like we're going to play low to the ground Huru version, and that's kind of scary because I don't have any early plays. We need to get on that. Now, those powers that I'm using have an inherent ability called Scout, which is basically like Scry. Opponent has a handful of really scary stuff. We're probably going to get rid of... What do we decide to get rid of here? I think it was going to be the Vanquisher's Blazers and drop our big stuff. That's what I figured it was. Good. So, as I said, that allows me to scry, if you're familiar with Magic terminology. They're not easy to get. They're rare cards, but they're very, very powerful, as you can see. There's virtual card advantage for that. So, we're on curve for our 4th power. Going to drop our Commando, which gives us lifesteal, allows us to stabilize, assuming he doesn't have an answer for that. Let's see if he does. Plays out his 4th power, swings for 2. Not going to bother blocking in case he has a trick. I know he has the finest hour, which is +3/+3 until end of turn. Kind of like a good old-fashioned Magic Giant Growth. Don't want to block because I just lose my Commando. So we're going to let the 2 swing in. He did not play his fast effect. So let's see what he does now, what his answers are. We didn't see anything in his hand that could kill this guy. So he plays Svetia Orient of Kosul. A lot of text in the card. More or less, the important thing is when she comes into play, I can't play weapons or spells. Kind of a bitch, but the one spell that I have isn't particularly useful because it kills single faction units. Both of his units are multi-faction. So we're going to throw a Merchant out, trade out Annihilate for our Banner, I think. Yep, it's a new power. We're out of power. We're on curve for 5 now, and our middle card there is Tavrod, otherwise known as the Rod, or Tav God, depending what you want to call him. He's an absolute beast of a unit. 5/7 for 5 with Endurance, which means it's Vigilance for Magic. He never exhausts when he attacks. As you can see, our other guy on the left there exhausted, meaning he's tapped out. He's going to play Mirror Image of here, so I can't play any spells or weapons. Joke's on him, I don't have anyone to play anyway, so whatever. So we're getting beat down pretty hard here, but we have a Lifesteal unit, so we should be able to stabilize, especially if we put Tav God down, it should be okay. The thing about Tav God is that when he swings in, you search the deck for Minotaurs and weapons, and then give them +5 or something obscene and put him into play. Problem is we got permafrosted, so it means we can't use our guy to lifesteal anymore. So we're going to go ahead and play our Auric Interrogator because we know he has a Vanquish in hand. I didn't want to play Tavrod out yet because I want to force out the Vanquish before he basically drops our best unit. There's the Vanquish. As expected, he's afraid of the card advantage. So the problem is now that we're taking crap tons of damage. We don't have board presence. We're at, yeah, so we're in serious trouble here. And if he just swings really hard, we're in deep doo-doo. So here I'm kind of going, wow, I have 8, and he has 8 on board. How do we do this? So he has enough to kill me. He has lethal, because I don't have enough blockers, potentially, to do what I need to. So either the question is playing Tavrod, or killing something with the Vanquisher's Blade first, namely one of the Svetias, and having a 4/4 blocker in the air, blocking one thing and then restabilizing with Tavrod. It's a risky play either way if he has any appropriate answers or any fast effects, but we know he has a Finest Hour in hand, so we're probably dead here. Not much to do, but I decide on the Vanquisher's Blade play because that at least gives me an option in case he drew removal not to get rid of Tavrod. And the question is, do I want to play out another unit or try to vanquish something? That's what I'm trying to decide now. I decided to vanquish something. He's playing out another unit. It's not going to change that much. Either way, I'm trading a card for a card, and this keeps me in card advantage situation in case we manage to pull this one out. But we got beat down pretty hard. Didn't curve out well, and he had a pretty good draw. So this one looks like it's in the bag for our opponent, unfortunately. Deck is usually pretty good against mid-range, but he was just a little lower to the ground and managed to beat us down. Here... looks like we can survive, but again, I'm still obviously expecting the Finest Hour, so there's really not much I can do. I'm just trying to think if there's any solutions I can wield to make it happen, but even if I trade with the 4, he's going to be able to Finest Hour the 3 and do it. So I'm just going to go ahead and kill a unit, Call it a day. He gets +3/+3 to an enemy, and that's just enough for lethal +1. Okay, so 2-1. That's definitely our first loss. Opponent had a really good draw, though, so I'm not too sad about that. Hopefully we can make it up in the next one, at least go positive on this one. Yeehaw. All right, next game against Yoshi. Again, terrible hand, 1 power, immediate redraw. Pull into 3 power with only 1 shadow source, but that seems to be everything we need for now, so we can play stuff out on curve and do well, assuming he's playing a deck which we have counter actions against. So first we're going to scout, immediately scry, see a power on top. Perfect. Pardon me. Should keep us on curve. He plays out that for 1 power, 2 factions. So he's playing Praxis, which could either be tokens or really big fat guys. Not sure. See which way this deck looks. Not certain yet which way it's going. We're going to go ahead and play our Bloodletter on curve. Again, the Aegis on the Crown Watch Paladin makes her a really good weapon carrier. She's kind of immune to enemy removal, at least for 1 go, so she's really tough to remove. And Fire has direct damage removal. And Time, which is the other faction he's playing, which is the yellow one, tends not to have much hard removal, but more bounce and stuff. So I'm pretty confident putting this down. The most common removal spell for Fire is a Torch. It's basically Bolt from Magic the Gathering. It's Lightning Bolt. One mana or power and 3 damage. So we'd have to use a lot to get rid of this now with the Aegis. So I'm going to go ahead and stack here. And that sound you're hearing is a war cry, which means it's giving my next unit in my deck whenever I draw it +1/+1. Putting down another Crown Watch Paladin to kind of stack up the war cries and kind of make sure we keep the pressure on. He's playing tokens, clearly, which is a scary deck when it gets going because of a card called Xenon Obelisk, which of course he drew at 4 power. Gives everything +1/+1. If he goes wide and does that, it's scary. When he gets up to 8 power, it becomes +2/+2. Question now is, do we play Tavgod or do something else? I think... What did I decide to do? I decided to wipe his board, basically. See if he's going to commit to wiping his board. I don't mind trading my ladies here, because I want to make sure he doesn't get any crazy rally plays. Often, this might not be the right play now that I'm looking at it. Am I going to try to save one? I'm going to play Tavrod. Do I save one? Then I don't play Tavrod. See, I probably should have paced up, played Tavrod, and not done this. But he basically traded 1 for 1, and we kept one of our ladies alive. Not sure that was the right play there. I probably should have dropped Tavrod and just attacked and traded board, and then we had Tavrod ready for the next turn. I think that was a misplay. It brought us down on tempo. So, there you go. I love criticizing my stuff. I'm doing this commentary ex post, by the way, if you hadn't figured it out by now. So I'm going to be criticizing my stuff pretty well. Again, I want to be playing Tavrod here. Lunar Magus is interesting. He's triggered an effect called Nightfall. Again, another thing you need to learn about this game. Nightfall is a particular effect which makes everyone draw an extra card for 1 round, but that particular card comes with 1 extra damage. So it's a way of generating extra cards, but it costs you a little bit of health. But again, 1 damage is trivial. I tend to like Nightfall when I'm on the receiving end of it, because you as the Nightfall receiver get the benefit first. So we drew a really... also, the War Cry, I forgot to mention, also attacks weapons. So we have a 6/6 Bloodletter. Normally it's a 3/3. So we're going to keep swinging for tempo here. The opponent's down to 10, which makes me pretty happy. Problem is we're not drawing power, and we can't really power out other stuff. We're playing 1 card a turn, and against tokens, you don't want that. You want to get more stuff down. He's playing power called Waystones, which allows you to get an effect. The Fire one in particular allows you to get a unit called a Grenadin. Now, he's at 8 power. The Xenon Obelisk is now giving +2/+2 to everything. We're in trouble. And Sandstorm Titty goes down, otherwise known as Darude, because Sandstorm, right? Prevents anything from flying, which is usually how I swing in for the win, so we need to find a way to deal with that card, like, stat. Why did I swing in here without casting anything? I think I'm just saying, realizing I'm really behind on board because I haven't drawn power. Okay, so he's going to try to give me a decision here. I think what I'm going to do is play... See, no matter what, I lose that. This is a misplay as well. I should realize I threw this game pretty hard. I should have, again, should have just played Tavrod. Should have just played Tavrod, let him swing in with the Sandstorm Titan, probably thinking he was safe, play Finest Hour, and then reswing. I was too eager to kill him too soon because I know what tokens could do. There's a chance I could have baited the attack from the Sandstorm Titan. Maybe not, maybe not. But looking back on it, I think I definitely misplayed this pretty hard. But the reason I wanted to do that also is to get rid of his 8th power and hoping he didn't draw another. But as it, I think, turns out, that's kind of a forlorn hope. Swings in with, yeah, see, that was the thing. If I had just saved the Finest Hour and played Tavrod, I could have dealt with the Sandstorm Titan and probably taken this one. Now, Endurance on the Titan is Vigilance, so basically he always swings in. It's a ridiculously undercosted card. It's got Endurance, it's a 5/6 for 4, and it stops things from flying. It's bananas. It was in set 1. Opponent has an ability called, a card called Purify. It silences, which destroys the abilities of cards. Finally have Tavrod down. Little late to the party. Again, I think, looking back on it, really misplayed this. Tokens is a scary matchup. It's one of the premier decks right now. And because I didn't say my Finest Hour, don't have a response to that. So, yeah. And now he's playing a Carnosaur he got from the market, which just killer effect, goes ahead, directly targets a unit instead of attacking generally, which means I'm screwed. Now, had I a flying unit right now and he didn't have Darude down, I had a win. So, Bloodletter on this guy before he got silenced, or Inquisitor's Blade on him, nearly swinging for lethal next turn, especially if he had healing. Unfortunately, that is not the case. So, we find ourselves in a bit of a quandary. I have to play to my outs now. I'm behind on board. Opponent nearly has lethal. So, I need to figure out some way to do this. I need to play a big, fat thing on him and try to bide some time. I was waiting to draw removal, trying to figure out a way. Unfortunately, I drew Inquisitor's Blade instead, which didn't help me. Now, I'm trying to do this only to buy time. I'm not sure what my outs are at this point. I don't think I have many, but I at least want to buy myself a turn or two to think. But again, this is not a good attack. It's just me trying to get some lifesteal to get it going. Again, really, I had a lot of outs, actually. I have a Inquisitor's Blades, which allow me to vanquish the Darude. I had... and the Inquisitor's Blade gives me flying again. I had Vanquish itself, Slay, which is another killer effect. So I just basically drew really bad to the solution we needed. So here I'm trying to wipe his board down a bit so I take less absolute damage per turn. I could manage to do this. Now I'm taking a relatively steady 13. Again, I don't see an out to this, but I'm still holding out hope I can pull something out of my ass. Highly unlikely, but you never know. Could draw something that's useful and finally find a way to do it. But again, this is looking pretty bad. And just to add insult to injury, I remember this because it's scarred in my brain. It's just, there is the kill spell I needed 2 rounds ago. Draws up, too late, so give him an emote, as in, you got this one. Drop this guy, show him that I could have if I drew it earlier, and opponent politely does the same back. And we are 2-2. Ugh, tough stuff. And I guess just a quick coda to everything that we saw, those 4 games. We went 2-2. I played one more afterwards. I thought I was recording, but I wasn't because I'm an idiot. And I went 3-2 at the end of the night. That night, this is now the next day that I'm recording this kind of coda. As you can see, we're out of silver 2. We're smack in the middle, or bottom third of gold 3, and working our way up the ladder. So, you know, details, but things went well in the end, and we were far more consistent after that. I think I went like 6-3 or 6-2 afterwards to get up to gold 3, so it was pretty good. Anyways, cool. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you want to see more Eternal, obviously let me know in the comments. Again, I'll be playing this anyway, so I figure I might as well put it up on the channel for people who are into CCGs. I know it's kind of a small subset of the community that do visit the channel for Civ and stuff, but if you're interested in anything of this nature, this is just, to me, it's probably the closest thing I can get to playing Magic just for fun whenever I have the chance, like, again, on the train, on the tram, when I'm commuting and stuff like that. It's oodles of fun, and I really fell in love with Eternal, and want to recommend it. Again, I'm not being sponsored or paid for any of this stuff. I just wanted to share something awesome that I found and have been absolutely abusing the hell out of. So, alrighty, for now, that's enough talking. I've been Nurse. Again, if you really dug it, do give me a thumbs up on this so I know that the series is positive. Leave a comment if you feel like it. And if you want to give me a thumbs down, let me know why. That'd be good. So I can get some constructive feedback from you all. But anyway, I'm going to stop talking, then I'll see you next episode, hopefully. And I hope you enjoyed this peek at Eternal. And maybe I've encouraged you to check it out because it's got a nice, healthy player base. And we could always use more friends to fight on ladder. So, alrighty. Cool, friends. I've been Nurse. See you all next time. Till then.